On this episode of That One Movie Podcast, we are going to review the Book of Clarence. Holden, we're going to start off spoiler-free as we do, and we'll warn you before we dive into spoilers. But beforehand, we are going to talk about the news from this week in the world of entertainment. Holden, what are some of this week's stories?
So we're going to be talking about a new Star Wars movie that was just announced. We're going to be talking about casting for The Last of Us Season 2, and also that apparently Top Gun 3 is in the works.
Wow.
So,
a Star Wars movie that may come out?
yeah, finally, maybe.
Stop the presses. Here we go. As always, use the time codes down in the description to jump to any part of the episode that you want to, whether that is the review of the movie, whether it's one of those stories that we're going to talk about, or you could just stick around for the whole thing. We'd encourage you to do that as well.
Absolutely.
I'm Jimmy Youthy.
I'm Holden Sutter.
And it's time for Tom.
Tom.
That One Movie Podcast. Tom.
All right, Jimmy. First off, we've got to do the Toms.
Very dramatic.
I know.
Very dramatic.
The Toms. Toms is the rapid fire segment in which we rate the news of the week in the world of entertainment on a scale of 3 famous Toms: Brokaw, Bombadil, and Bergeron. Brokaw's the highest, Bombadil's the lowest, and Bergeron is somewhere in between.
There we go. Oh, flawless.
Nice.
10 out of 10.
First off, we've got a couple of trailers to talk about. Mostly one. I'll talk kind of blindly about another one.
All right, sounds good.
But let's talk about Abigail.
Abigail.
This is the new horror movie from the directors of Scream 5 and 6. They go collectively by the name Radio Silence. They also did Ready or Not a few years ago. Some well-received modern horror kind of comedy movies. What do you think of this trailer, Jimmy?
It's very all over the place and wild, right? It seems like so there are these people are hired to, I can't remember, is it to protect this girl or to keep her hostage or something?
It's not really clear by the trailer, so
something like that.
Yeah. Regardless, they're stuck in this house for 24 hours or whatever.
And this girl is a vampire who's going to kill them all.
Yeah. The girl is played by, she was Matilda in the Matilda the musical movie that just came out. She was very
From
good in
the
that.
90s.
Yeah.
She looks the same.
Yeah, she hasn't aged a day.
Or 80s, whenever that movie came out.
But then you also have Melissa Barrera, who was just in the Scream movies. You've got Catherine Newton, Giancarlo Esposito.
That's
was
right.
in the trailer. Yeah, and pretty good cast. Looks like fun. I kind of wish that the trailer didn't like give away that she's a vampire.
I did too. I was like, as soon as that happened, I was like, wow, that would have been so much more fun to see in the movie.
Not that like vampire is like particularly a surprising monster or anything, but like, yeah, it just would have been cooler to have that reveal in the movie.
I get it. You got to sell tickets, right? So,
Yeah.
Looks fun. I like the idea of all these people have to work together to survive. I kind of hope that they maybe start off as like, don't want anything to do with each other. It's a job. Like,
I'm sure, that's what it'll probably start
and then they're
as.
just forced into, oh my gosh, there's this girl who is a force of nature because she is this evil vampire killing thing. She seems to not really want to do it. It's like this alternate persona that comes out of her, almost werewolf style. It's like,
animalistic tendencies that come out.
Yeah, I'm sorry this is about to happen to you or whatever. So we'll see how that goes. Looks like fun. I don't know. That's where I'm at, Holden. I'm going to give it a Brokaw.
Yeah, I think it's aside from that reveal in the trailer, hopefully there's more to the movie than just that. But it's a solid trailer. It gets me excited for this movie that otherwise I didn't know about. So
yeah,
Brokaw.
Very exciting. All right, Holden, next story.
I'll briefly talk about the 3 Body Problem trailer because you didn't watch it because you said you wanted to read the book first.
Yeah, I'll put about a 10% chance of that happening, but just in case.
Yeah, this is the new show, the new Netflix show from the Game of Thrones creators, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss. And it's got a pretty good cast, looks like. I forgot that Benedict Wong is like the lead in it. He's always great. Yeah, I don't know. The trailer doesn't really give away much. It just is very confusing.
Okay.
I'm not really sure what's supposed to be happening. Looks like there's a murder mystery thing going on here with Benedict Wong's character. But otherwise, it's I don't know. There's a lot of sci-fi things going on. Looks like there's some VR stuff happening. I don't know. It's really hard to tell. It's a good trailer in the sense it gets you like excited for it, but it doesn't really tell you much.
Good. Well, so I read the Hollywood Reporter article that featured them, which is very interesting to read. And I need to do a deep dive on this like producer of the show getting like poisoned.
Yeah, you mentioned this.
It seems very interesting. Like I need to go back and revisit that when I have a second to just deep dive. Maybe I'll do that while watching some playoff football later this afternoon if the game's a blowout or something. But I think it's very interesting because in the interview, one of the D&D guys is like, well, yeah, this is a trilogy of books from China, and the first book, they're like, yeah, the first book is the worst one. So if we can make it past this season, we're gold. And they said the ending is incredible.
Interesting.
So, D&D shows are known for their incredible endings.
Yeah.
For really nailing it. No, they're like, yeah. So we went from having a show that had a great start and no idea what the ending is and completely botching it. They're like, what is going to be the most like nailed it ending redemption arc that we can have so we can like get rid of this trope that we can't finish the show.
Yeah.
That is funny if they do go from like arguably like the most disappointing ending of something of all time to one of the most praised endings of all time for a TV show.
Well, and if they do one book per season, however they're doing it, then they only have to commit to 3 seasons really, and they don't have to worry about getting tired of the show.
Well, they also talk about that in the Hollywood Reporter too. They said that was never like that wasn't the problem. They said they were always planning on doing 7-ish seasons of Game of Thrones. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
They just didn't know how to stick the landing without the source material, I guess.
They're like 7 years from now, we're going to be tired of doing this. Yeah. We want to make that Confederate show.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'm going to give it a broke. I'm excited for this. People love this book. It's produced by Ryan Johnson, so everybody's favorite people involved here.
He's giving a Brocon a trailer he didn't watch.
Yeah,
I'll give it a Brocon too because I thought it was a good trailer.
It was one of my most anticipated shows of the year.
That's true. Yeah, I think it was only on honorable mention for me.
It's March 20.
Yeah, something like that. Jimmy. First up for other news, though, a new Star Wars movie was announced this week. Bit of a surprise called The Mandalorian and Grogu. It's going to be directed by Jon Favreau. It's apparently going to be theatrically released. But yeah, it's a continuation of the Mandalorian story with Pedro Pascal as Din Djarin. And we have Grogu, of course, Baby Yoda. Apparently, because of this, The Mandalorian Season 4 is no longer a given, though. Scripts were apparently finished pre-strike, but the outcome will depend on the success of this movie.
Okay, well, when is this? Isn't production starting?
Production starting later this year for the movie.
Gee whiz, yeah, just 5 years in between Mandalorian seasons. Do whatever you want at this point, guys. How many years was it in between 2 and 3?
Well, let's think. 2019 was first season, 2020 second season. So
was it 2020 or 2021?
I guess I don't know.
I don't.
It was
remember.
either 2 or 3.
I don't remember. It was I felt like a long time. They did do Book of Boba Fett.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. That happened. We reviewed it.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I thought Mandalorian season 3 was very mediocre.
It's a wash.
And I do like seasons 1 and 2. And I'm actually team season 2 finale is highly overrated, but I do think that second season is pretty good, actually, especially upon rewatching it. Look, the big complaint about a lot of these Disney Plus shows is, well, they drug it out. It should have just been a movie.
Yeah.
So we'll see, a movie like, I would rather have a tight 2 hours, great theatrical experience. Sounds like a lot of fun. I love The Mandalorian. I love myself some Grogu. If I have a great 2-hour story with them, awesome. Give me whatever is going to be the best version of the story. And if that's the case, let's do it. As long as it's not, okay, corporate says we need to have these guys in the theaters before we can have the Dave Filoni big culminating Thrawn thing. So now we got to just whip up this story, or I got to convert this thing that I had written over a whole season into a 2 hour or 2.5 hour experience. as long as it's not that, which, you know, who will we ever know, you know, then that's fine. So I guess it's just contingent on those things. I'm glad we're getting more because I was not satisfied with the end of season 3.
I agree. Yeah, from that aspect. It's not.
I think if anything, they should have stopped at season 2.
Yeah. It's not a 1-for-1, but I'm worried this is going to go like the way of the Marvels, right? Because the Marvels, sure, there was general kind of disinterest in the MCU as to part of the reason why that failed, but there was also like people just hadn't seen like the Miss Marvel show and stuff, and like so they weren't going to go see this movie in theaters. I'm wondering if that's going to happen with this. Right?
I don't think so. I think the Mandalorian and Grogu has way more pull than Captain Marvel. I think Captain Marvel came out, the original that made $1 billion, and then came out. I mean, it was right. It was in between Infinity War and Endgame. Yeah. I mean, that was
2019.
Just prime real. Any Marvel movie that came out with any sort of significance was going to make $1 billion.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that just those two characters are going to have more pull than like that. So I'm not too worried about this movie doing well. I think it will do well. People love The Mandalorian. People like season 3. The general audience likes season 3. Like, enjoyed it, thought it was good, whatever, popcorn, Star Wars. People like The Mandalorian. I think it's highly regarded in terms of Disney Plus shows. I haven't heard anybody say like, oh, wow, no more Mandalorian, please. So we'll see. I think it's going to do well. Just tell a good story. I think, we'll see what happens. They're obviously trying to build up to this big Dave Filoni thing.
Yeah.
Ahsoka season 2 is happening. Is this also part of this?
Yeah, I wrote that down here too. That they confirmed Ahsoka season 2 is also happening.
I'm gonna give the Mandalorian movie a Bergeron just because give us the best story. And we don't know yet. Is this a good story? And this could turn into a Brokaw. If we get a fantastic 2-hour movie, it could turn into a Bombadil. If it's clearly like, well, this is way too much to cram into one movie. It should have been a season of a TV show.
Yeah, I guess I'll probably give it a Bergeron. It's Bergeron leaning Bombadil. I'm not sure I really want to see this in the theater. Like, I don't know. My interest in The Mandalorian is at an all-time low right now. So them announcing this was just kind of like, all right, I guess we're getting it.
Yeah.
I like Grogu. He's in the title, so he'll be in it, hopefully. It'd be misleading if he wasn't.
The Mandalorian and Grogu. Yeah. It's a bad title.
Yeah, it is.
Do you think they should just call it The Mandalorian : a subtitle?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was like. I feel like that would make the most sense. The Mandalorian and Grogu is very strange.
Mm-hmm. The Mandalorian and Grogu of the Planet of the Apes.
Yes.
All right. Let's Ahsoka season 2.
Ahsoka season 2. Yeah. I just have down here that it's officially being developed by Dave Filoni.
I can't wait for another season of filler content. Bombadil. Season 1. Who
was
cares?
Filler. Yeah.
They got back Ezra.
Thrawn. And Thrawn's back.
Cool. What a disinteresting story.
Well, now I guess this is going to be the
Spoilers
season.
For season 1.
Yeah, it's
from something
Ahsoka
that
has to
clearly
escape.
is going to happen from the first episode.
Ahsoka has to escape that world now, I guess, somehow.
Oh, wow. And there's going to be no resolution because there's a movie coming out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Boy, I'm sure interested in what Baylan Skull's going to do.
Oh, wait. Ray Stevenson's died.
He died.
Which is unfortunate. The best part of the series. So we'll see if there's any resolution for that. Probably won't be satisfying.
Can't wait for them to just distastefully either bring him back with CGI or just pretend like that never happened.
Yeah.
That storyline.
One or the other, probably. Bombadil for me. Don't want to see this.
I may not even watch this, honestly. I just do not care. And I think Ahsoka is one of the most interesting characters in all of Star Wars.
Yeah.
So
may have to wait for the general consensus on this one.
Yeah. Although the general consensus is that season 1 is good.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't get that one. I don't get it.
Boring. Jimmy, other news.
Something not controversial at all. Yeah. The Last of Us 2.
Last of Us 2. So we got a couple important cast member added. So we've got Caitlin Dever as Abby and Isabella Merced as Dina. So Abby is a
Very prominent character in the second
Very
game.
controversial character. Caitlin Dever is a great actress. I think she's really great. She's one of the leads in Booksmart. She's very good in that.
She's 5'2".
Yeah, that's considering like Abby's physique is like such a big like part of her character. I guess it's kind of interesting that she is seemingly smaller, but
they're going in a different direction.
Could be, yeah, just using the name and doing a different thing with it. She's the miniseries Unbelievable. She's really good in too. But yeah, great actress. I mean, in terms of talent, it's a very good choice. We'll see, how it plays out for Abby. But then Dina, another important character, is Isabella Merced, who's going to be in Madam Web coming soon.
Oh,
very
boy.
exciting. She was also she was Dora in the Dora movie.
Yeah, never did see that Dora movie.
Yeah, she's in the second Sicario movie. She's in the 5th Transformers movie. She's going to be Hawk Girl in Superman Legacy.
Oh, wow.
So she's got a lot going on. She's good in what I've seen her in.
Did you see this Dora movie?
No.
I remember it coming out.
Yeah,
What the heck?
I don't really remember much about it. Like, it happened.
It's got an 85 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
$120.6 million it made on a $49 million budget.
Not bad. People like Dora, I guess.
Never got a sequel. Wow, that monkey looks disturbing. What's the monkey's name?
Boots.
Boots, that's right. Wow. Go look up a picture of Dora and the Lost City of Gold.
This is a like off topic, but I saw a clip like within the last couple weeks, and I don't know if it's edited, but if it's edited, it's edited well. I think but the clip indicated that the Boots is voiced by Danny Trejo, and it just sounds like Danny Trejo. It's like very off-putting. I thought it was a funny clip if it was fake.
Iron Man 2 villain, Danny Trejo. Right?
No.
Wait, who am I?
You're thinking Mickey Rourke. Danny Trejo is he's the
he's the Iron Man 2 villain.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is. He's in one of them.
He's not in Iron Man 2.
He isn't? Well, who am I?
You're thinking of Mickey Rourke.
Oh, okay. Wow, I just assumed that was Danny Trejo this whole time. I know who Danny Trejo is. What else? Okay, he's in Machete.
Yeah, Spy Kids as Machete from Dusk Till Dawn. He's in a lot of Robert Rodriguez stuff. He was the Rancor trainer in Boba Fett.
That's right.
He's a man who will do anything.
Wow, I just always assumed that was him in Iron Man 2. That just goes to show you I've not seen Iron Man 2 in a long time.
Anyway, we got way off topic there. What do you think of these casts? And any thoughts?
Good luck adapting season 2. That's all I gotta say. Sure, Brokaw. I'm curious that Abby's 5'2" because she seems like she's like 6'2".
Yeah,
and just very massive.
Yeah,
in the game. I would good on Caitlin Dever. God bless her.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I hope she knows what's coming to her.
I'm sure she's been briefed, but yeah,
I wouldn't wish that role on anyone in the world.
Now I was just thinking about it. She also did the voice and mocap for Nathan Drake's daughter in Uncharted 4. Oh, apparently. So she has. I mean,
interesting.
She has a history with Naughty Dog, I guess. But yeah, I think both actresses are good. I think they'll do well in these roles. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. I'm still it's too late now. Still of the opinion they should do an original season in between 1 and 2.
Yes,
absolutely. That's the conclusion we came to. I think that gives you also
Absolutely.
time to like have Ellie age up some and everything. Like it makes more sense. But
absolutely. Well,
we'll see. We'll see how this turns out. Maybe that's what they're doing.
They at least need to split season 2 or part 2 into 2
Yeah,
seasons.
it's so big, and maybe that's their plan. So then they can, give us time for Last of Us 3 to come out. Who knows?
Or maybe not. I mean, I don't know. A big gripe of me for part 2, which you can listen to our game review that we did on the podcast, is that the game is so long-winded and exhausting that maybe they do need to just tighten up that season.
I bet they're going to find a way to hopefully improve on some of its faults. We'll see.
Well, I'll be replaying it soon is the plan. So
yeah. Next piece of news, Jimmy. Top Gun 3 is apparently in the works with Tom Cruise, Glenn Powell, and Miles Teller all returning in their roles. Maverick co-writer Aaron Kruger has started on the script.
I'm at a Bombadil for this.
You're at a Bombadil?
The reason why is they're not going to make a movie better than Top Gun Maverick.
It's
just
agree with
not
that.
going to happen. So it's a Bombadil. I just I don't like they've done it. You've reached the top of this mountain. You need to go do something else.
Okay,
is my stance on it. Like you either the Dark Knight. You either die the hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. You go out on top. Mm-hmm. John Wick should be doing the same thing. You're not going to make a better movie than John Wick Chapter 4. You're not going to make a better movie than Top Gun Maverick. Just, you're done. Be done.
Okay, I think I am convinced. I'll go with a Bombadil on this too. I'm also adding in the aspect of I'm not particularly interested in a third Top Gun. I wasn't interested in Top Gun Maverick when it first came out.
Neither were of us the biggest anti-Top Gun Maverick people going to that movie. It was one of the most dreaded movies of the year for us.
And it kept being delayed. Yeah.
We watched that trailer a million times. We were like, we don't want to see this. We hate this. Can we get this done with? And then the movie turned out to be very good.
It was very good. And I don't think either of us quite like it as much as a lot of people do. Like, at least me.
I thought it was fantastic.
It's very good. It's a
Yeah.
well-made movie, but it's a movie that I personally don't think I'll watch again just because it's like...
I would watch it again.
Okay.
I would definitely watch it again. I thought it was tremendous.
Yeah. But my interest in Top Gun as like a concept and franchise is just not very high. It is higher than it was because Maverick was quite good, but I don't know. It's a military plane movie that was this new one was very good. The first one wasn't.
Some vague enemy nation.
Yeah, vague nameless nation. So yeah, I'll give it.
I'd rather have another Mission Impossible.
Absolutely. Yeah. Bring more of those in because I don't know what else they'll do with Top Gun. What else they could do? Good cast. I mean, Glenn Powell and Miles Teller coming back is good, but yeah. And another bit that kind of ties into this is that apparently Tom Cruise is going to start making movies with Warner Bros, seemingly ending his Paramount exclusivity. So, and a part of this that I've seen, people talk about on the internet is Edge of Tomorrow 2.
Ooh, I still haven't seen that. People love that movie.
Edge of Tomorrow, I've only seen it the one time in theaters, I think. I remember quite liking it though. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a movie that I don't think needs a sequel because I think it ends and it's clearly just like a one and done movie, but they've talked about it for a long time. Tom Cruise has shown interest in it, and I think if it has kind of the talent behind it the first one does, it could be quite good. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Sure, whatever. Broca, I don't know.
Sure.
Tom Cruise making more movies, giving him money to make movies. The guy loves making movies.
He does.
Good
he loves it when you see him in the theaters too. He always thanks you.
Hey Jimmy, how's it going? High five, man.
He's always at our theater. It's kind of weird.
You know what, Tom? You actually look taller in person.
Oh,
Just kidding.
That would warm his heart. Jimmy, 28 years later, is officially in development. Danny Boyle is back to direct. Alex Garland is back as a writer. Apparently, it's plans to launch a new trilogy of zombie-related movies. And it's no studio or stars are officially attached yet. But what do you think? Would you be excited for a later sequel of 28 Days Later, a movie that neither of us liked that much?
I don't think it ages particularly well.
Yeah.
I think the genre has been, I think it's been superseded by like things like The Last of Us.
It's one of those movies that was very influential when it came out. It was like the start of it's fast zombies in that movie. Is it fast zombies?
I think so.
I can't remember it, but it was regardless. It was kind of the start of the zombie craze in like the mid to late 2000s that has continued to a certain extent today. So many things have like taken from it. Like the whole intro is just like the Walking Dead intro at this point. If you've seen like the first episode of The Walking Dead, I don't know what came first. I'm guessing like the movie came out before the comic. I don't know. But yeah, very influential. Just a lot of things have surpassed it, as you said.
Yeah. I think it would be funny if this movie came out in 2030. So it'd literally be
would be
28 years later.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I'm at a Bergeron, a whole trilogy that makes me less optimistic about this. It was just like, hey, we had an idea for one and done. Let's do it. So I'm at a Bergeron.
Yeah, I mean, if both of like Danny Boyle and Alex Garland are doing a whole trilogy, cool. That means maybe they've got a talented vision behind it. It was kind of unclear based on what I was seeing as to if they're like going to be on the 2 sequels they're planning. But yeah, I'll give it a Bergeron. We'll see. I'll at least be like interested in this first movie because the talent behind it is quite good. So, and as far as I know, like Cillian Murphy hasn't necessarily attached to anything, so we'll see.
Yeah. 28 Weeks Later has a decent ratings.
I've heard that movie does not
28
hold up
days
very
later.
well. 28 Weeks Later. But I don't know. Standalone sequel. Well, who knows if it'll even tie into this new one.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Jeremy Renner's in it? I didn't know that.
Oh, weird.
28 Weeks Later. I don't know. Yeah, Bergeron.
All right, Jimmy. Next piece of news. The Exorcist Deceiver, the sequel, upcoming sequel to Believer. Director David Gordon Green has been removed from this movie. Oof. He directed the first of the Exorcist Believer, came out this last year, and did all of the Halloween trilogy, of which we liked one of them.
The first one.
Yeah, the first one. The movie has also been removed from its April 2025 release date as it's seemingly being kind of reworked and stuff.
This movie's not happening.
I agree. I don't think it's happening.
At least not remotely in the way it was going to happen.
No.
It will be rebooted again.
I mean, that like it's so strange because I mean, as the first movie, not very good, but one of the weirdest things about it is it does not set up a trilogy like at all. There's not really any cliffhanger or anything, and for that to be the intention, I would finish that movie. I'm like, okay, what do you do now? 3 girls get possessed, I guess. I don't know.
I don't hate that movie as much as other people did, but I don't know. Bergeron, just because it's like, look. I'm glad they're not making a trilogy of bad movies, but it also stinks because if the first, if it had been, it would have been nice to have good movies come out, and this is kind of just a testament to we did not get a good movie. So now it seems like it's not going to happen.
I'm gonna give it a Brokaw because I'm glad we're not getting more bad movies.
There we go.
Jimmy, a new Star Trek movie is apparently in development, directed by Toby Haynes, who directed some of the episodes of Andor. Seth Grahame-Smith is writing, and it's going to be a prequel to the 2009 Star Trek movie, which was already like billed as a prequel, even though I guess it's a different timeline now. Yeah. So it's in that timeline, but a prequel.
Prequel?
Yeah. I don't understand. It said it said specifically it was like set like decades prior. So I don't know if this.
So it's nobody we know.
Well, the only thing I could think of is like there's been a long talk about like doing a movie based on like Chris Hemsworth in that movie, so it could be that as Kirk's dad. But other than if it's not that, then yeah, it's probably no one we know.
Strange. I don't know why they would do that unless they have a lot of confidence in their script.
Yeah, I don't know.
Seth Grahame-Smith.
I didn't look up what he had done, but
let's find out. Seth Grahame-Smith. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
He wrote the book?
Did he actually write this? Okay. Best known as the author of Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
I've heard those books are good.
I read that in 8th grade. I don't really remember it.
Okay. I don't.
Beetlejuice 2.
He wrote the upcoming Beetlejuice 2? Interesting.
Well, curious. So he's doing a Star Trek movie.
Guess so.
Wow. Toby Haynes.
Yeah, I forgot to look up what episodes he directed. What?
Way to do your research, Holden.
Well, I just honestly thought we were going to leave it at that.
Well, it's nice to know.
Episodes 1 through 3 and 8 through 10.
So a lot of them.
A lot of it.
So, but not the
prison arc.
Not the prison arc.
Okay.
So I feel like the prison arc was probably the best part of the show.
It was. I mean, the rest of the show was directed well too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what were the best episodes.
last episode's pretty dang good.
Yeah. I don't remember which episode's which. They're all pretty good. Mm-hmm. So good. I'm gonna go Bergeron. Curious that it's a prequel.
Yeah.
Very, very curious.
I know everyone in the series is so famous now, but just make Star Trek 4. I want Star Trek 4. I feel like a lot of the cast wants Star Trek 4.
It's been 9 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. Whatever. I'm sure there's a lot of behind the scenes things we don't know about. Jimmy.
Chris Pine spitting on people.
Yeah. I forgot about that whole thing. Martin Scorsese's next movie apparently is not going to be The Wager, but a movie about Jesus. Wow. Staying on topic with today.
We're about to review a movie about Jesus.
Yeah. This movie apparently is going to be his shortest movie. It's going to be between 80 and 90 minutes. It's based on a 2016 book called A Life of Jesus by Shusaku Endo. This is apparently like his like direct response to the Pope saying there needs to be more movies about Jesus. So
I don't want any more of these pure flex things.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch the Duck Dynasty guy. I want some actual Jesus.
An actual good movie.
The Pope.
Yeah.
None of this, Protestant slop they're putting out there. The Pope.
I mean, Martin Scorsese.
I have to watch Kirk Cameron in a movie again.
That's right. Kirk Cameron.
I just imagine the Pope just hating a lot of movies.
I could see that. I mean, knowing nothing about the Pope as a person.
I want Goodfellas, but it's Jesus.
Martin Scorsese is no stranger to like religious movies. I mean, he made The Last Temptation of Christ in the 80s. Silence is one of his most recent movies. So this is in line with that. I mean, I'm very excited for The Wager based on concept. So kind of disappointing that's not his next one, but I'll always be down to see anything he makes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think Silence is one of the great religious films I've ever seen.
Still have never seen it.
And so I'll go bad. I don't know. Bergeron. I mean, we haven't seen it yet, so
yeah.
I would, it would be nice to have something replace The Last Temptation. No, not The Last, which I haven't seen.
The Passion of the Christ.
Passion of the Christ. It would be nice to have another movie to portray different things. I think Martin Scorsese does a great job of like making it a little bit more nuanced or just like less preachy and more of just like, hey, here's I like Martin Scorsese because he doesn't answer all the questions. He's not like, here's why you need to believe in Jesus. It's like, well, here's some of these beliefs. What do you do with them? Like, like it's like Silence is a great example of that. It's like, look, here are different characters with different sets of beliefs that you can relate to any one of them. What do you do with that? It's like, what is, what is God and all this? He asks more questions than he answers. And that's what I like about him, because I think way too many religious films are providing answers and saying, here's what you need to think. And I am a person who is more curious about having the discussions around him and listening to other people and admitting that I don't know and I don't have all the answers. All right.
Yeah.
So Bergeron for me.
Yeah, I'll go with a Bergeron too. And then just the last couple bits here, because they apply directly to our episode last week. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes did move its release date, like we predicted. Either that or Furiosa would. It's now coming out 2 weeks earlier on May 10th, which was previously like an empty week. So makes sense. Good for that. What doesn't? Yeah, Broca. And then the other thing is that Mickey 17, the new Bong Joon-ho sci-fi movie, has been removed from its March release date and currently without a new date. So
it's not coming out this year.
It's kind of my guess.
That's good that they're taking their time with it, but sad that it's just not going to come out this year. That's sad. Yeah,
it directly affects my. Was it in your top 10?
I think it was like number 3, maybe.
Okay.
Let me see. I got it somewhere. Most anticipated. Yeah, number 3.
Yeah, and now it's just probably not coming out this year. So great. Move up your first honorable mention.
Yeah, I have 3.
Civil War.
Civil War.
Civil War is getting moved up. Fall Guy.
Yeah. There we go.
But that's it for Tom's. So it was a big week for Tom's this week. As the week was going on, I'm like, oh, new Star Wars movie, new, Top Gun. There's a bunch of things to talk about. So
yeah, there we go.
Now we got brief TOMPeyes.
Very brief TOMPeyes. Good chicken. Good service this week.
Yeah.
Got all dark. Got 2 wings this time. Well, the wing. Is it white meat? Is it dark meat? Somewhere in between.
Who can tell?
Who can know?
It's a magical
it really it just is very versatile.
Got separate baskets of fries, which is always nice. Just get more fries that way. Mm-hmm. They brought it out to us, which is, never necessary, but appreciated when they do. Yeah. It was just a solid time. And we were there with probably less time than usual because I got there late, but we had plenty of time just because it was very quick and everything.
Holden got an extra tender.
Yeah, an extra tender. It was very cool.
Nice.
I wasn't able to finish it all.
Yeah.
I didn't a lot room in my stomach for 6 tenders, Jimmy. I'm always thinking 5.
I don't know if I can finish this whole adult-sized Krabby Patty.
That's right.
All right. Well, that's it for TOMPeyes. Really uneventful week. You know, what the heck, Popeyes?
Yeah. We demand worse things happen to us, so then we have more to talk about for this segment.
Or just funny things.
Or funny things, yeah.
Funny, good things. What I prefer. All right. Let's talk about the Book of Clarence. This will be our non-spoiler review. So you want to listen to this, decide whether or not you want to see this movie, or just get our kind of general overarching thoughts.
Yes. Okay, so the Book of Clarence, Jimmy. Do you have your synopsis ready?
I'm pulling it up right now.
Directed by James Samuels, I believe his name is. Who also
is it James or is it Jameis? I was going to look it up.
I guess I didn't look at the pronunciation.
Also goes by The Bullets.
Yes, he's a musician. He composed the movie as well. I think he's wrote it or co-wrote it at the very least. Of a multifaceted talent. He did The Harder They Fall on Netflix, which is apparently a very good Western. Have not seen it yet.
I haven't seen it either. All right, here's the synopsis, Holden. A down on his luck man struggles to find a better life for his family while fighting to free himself of debt. Captivated by the power and glory of the rising Messiah, he risks everything to carve his own path to a divine life, ultimately discovering that the redemptive power of belief may be his only way out. This movie takes place in Jerusalem during the time of Christ, specifically like Passion of the Christ time, 33 or AD 33. Nice touch during the intro. AD putting it before the date. It's supposed to be AD 33, not
Very
33 AD. Lots of movies and shows get that wrong. Very nice touch, James. I forget his James. What's his last name?
Samuels.
Yeah.
So this movie I was kind of excited for because very rarely do I go see a movie where I know very little about it because I had not seen the trailer at all. All I had known was like vaguely what you had said, like it was about. And we just kind of decided to do it last week. We weren't sure if we were necessarily going to see a movie in theaters. So yeah, I was kind of excited to go in with no preconceived notion of any sort. And unfortunately it was just a fine movie, I think. It was a bit disappointing, which is interesting because like I said, I didn't really go in with any expectations, but I think in concept, this movie should work a lot better than it does.
Yeah.
And unfortunately it's a bit of a mess, tonally, certainly. And eventually we talked about how we liked it more as it went on. And kind of in retrospect, I think for me, like the second act is the strongest, like the second third of the movie. And while I enjoy parts of the third act, at that point, that's kind of when it clicks together, but it clicks together in a way that I'm not sure I'm satisfied with. Like it kind of settles on a tone and I'm like, I don't know. It's not the tone I would have appreciated, I guess, or what I felt like the movie was really building towards. And I think that's ultimately the big problem is that in some of the writing.
Yeah, that my big thing is there's a lot of huge swings in this. Like this movie goes for it. I think the score and the soundtrack are fantastic.
Yeah,
I thought they were great. This movie is a lot of vibes.
Yeah.
A lot of vibes, especially the first half of this movie is just vibes.
There was like a period of this movie, I'd say like the first 20 or 30 minutes where I was like, is this like a stoner comedy?
Yeah.
There was like, based on the vibes, there was a lot of weed being smoked in the movie. And like based on the pure vibes of it, the humor and everything, I was like, is this like a stoner comedy set during like Jesus times? Because that would be like not, I'm not like a big fan of stoner comedies, but that would be like a very interesting thing to do. And I think that would be still like a way you could write in some satire. I was like, that's a very weird direction. And then it kind of loses that as it goes on. But yeah, as you said, first third is a very big vibes.
One of the things you said when we walked out of the theater is that movie needed to be funnier. And I agree, because a lot of the just jokes did not land for us. I mean, if they land for you, great. I think you're going to enjoy this movie a lot more.
Yeah.
I like this movie. I like the idea of this movie. I really like the direction. I thought this movie was exceptionally well directed and really well acted. I think the performances are all great. Excellent. I think it's a very good looking movie. It's pretty, in terms of like the sequences themselves are well edited, but the pieces, you know, like these individual pieces, it just is a mess. It's like, what is happening? Like, it seems like it's completely different movies from scene to scene. It does not feel like there's this single like connective tissue driving the story along, bringing things together. Thematically, it's all over the place. Does it want to talk about race? Does it want to talk about religion? What does it want to get at with those things? It just seems like, it very much seems like the people who wrote this sat down, wrote part of it in one setting, came back the next day, didn't edit it at all, and wrote the next part, came back the next day, wrote the next part, and they just never went back and made a cohesive story. And that's what it comes off as.
And just each time they're like throwing so much at the wall too. This movie, like editing wise, it has hints of like blaxploitation, I guess, in it, but it's like it doesn't really commit fully to that tone. There's a lot of magical realism in the movie, just like, if you're unfamiliar with the term, just a lot of weird things happen in the movie that are like unexplained. And I felt like that was not elaborated on enough to really be or like it wasn't present enough in the movie to be like there. Cause a lot of, especially as the movie goes on, a lot of the weird things that happen is just like Jesus performing miracles or whatever. But then earlier in the movie, there's like a scene of people like smoking a hookah and just flying in the air and everything. And I'm like, and it seemingly is occurring in universe of the movie. I don't know. It's like, it feels like it should have committed more fully to weird things like that, or like the light bulb appearing over his head. Like, I don't know, just like little snippets of like good ideas are in there, but it needed to commit more fully to them.
In a weird comparison, like you have all these things in Wonka that are outrageous, but they feel grounded to the world. This, it's like they don't do a very good job of establishing that realism. Like, what is the reality here?
Yeah, that is a good comparison.
I don't know. There are sequences that I like. I like some of the side characters here. RJ's, is it Siler? I like his character. Yeah. I like, there's this gladiator character that I think is great.
Omar Sy as the actor. Yeah, he's quite good.
I there are parts of this where I'm like, I really enjoy this and different elements of it, but the whole thing doesn't quite work. And even though it doesn't quite work, I still kind of like it. I don't think I'd ever go back and watch this again. It's way too long. It also just is like, why is this movie 2 hours and 10 minutes? It just felt like it went on forever for me too. And again, it feels disjointed. It's not this like thing that just marches towards the end. It's like, okay, now let's go smoke some weed and now we're hanging. You know, it's that vibes thing. It's like, okay, but then I don't know. It just doesn't work for me in a lot of ways. But here's what I do appreciate, the swings. Again, I think it's really well directed. I would love to see what else James Samuel does in the future. I'll have to go back and check out his Western on Netflix. I loved all the performances, the soundtrack, the visuals. I think it looks good. I like a lot of the concepts. Just don't know who I would like recommend this to.
Yeah, so I was thinking, I don't know like James Samuels, his like religious beliefs, but the movie like for the first 2/3 feels like very agnostic, I would guess. Like it's because it's like kind of going in between like the, is Jesus, did he actually perform these miracles? And then you have Lakeith's character who's like focusing in more on like what is like what you should believe and everything. And I felt like kind of some agnostic vibes there, which
atheist, I would say more.
Well, I was
like, I think it's more critical than that.
I guess like the reason why I think agnostic is because like towards the end of the movie, it feels very earnestly like religious.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like they just 180 it.
Yeah, which is very strange, and so maybe that's why I get more agnostic term like. Well,
you said the first 2/3, so that's what I was only contextualizing the first 2/3.
Yeah, okay, you're right. But so I think it's kind of in theory more interesting than just like a religious satire made by like someone who's like completely doesn't believe in it, because you get that a lot, because I feel like there's plenty of those movies out there, but it just like didn't really come together because, as you said, it just flips in that third act. It's like, I feel like you could have had that more spread out in there if you wanted to include more like genuine religious beliefs. Like, I don't know. It's strange. Or if nothing else, extend that kind of questioning into that third act, because it just becomes like very earnestly like, oh yeah, God and Jesus were very real, and what they performed was very true. It becomes very literal, I guess I should say.
I don't know if it like completely leans into that, but it's definitely like to go so far against it to like, maybe there's something. I don't think it's like it's not God's not dead.
No, it's not
atheists
that.
getting hit by cars and converting to Christianity right before they die.
Not that bad.
And that's where I'm like, look, every movie has its audience. If you love that pure flick stuff, good on you. I don't think it's interesting. I don't think it furthers the discussion. I haven't seen. I heard the new Duck Dynasty one. People like. I haven't seen it. Okay.
I keep forgetting that exists.
I do think like if you're gonna have like at least at the end like a pro faith movie, I do think that something like this is inherently more interesting to watch than something that's just gonna hit you over the head.
Yeah.
Like, here's why you need to believe in our religious institutions. That's where I'm at. So I commend them for doing that. I cannot believe this movie exists.
Yeah.
It's got a $40 million budget. It is just such a big swing.
Absolutely not going to make that money back.
No, absolutely not.
We saw it opening night, and there were 2 other people in the theater.
Yeah.
So.
Was not very good weather, but.
True. Yeah, that's fair.
We
braved braved the weather for some Popeyes and movie.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know, who is this movie for? If you're in that boat where it's like, hey, look, I would like to see a movie that poses questions about the Christian faith that is not a pure flicks movie, then you might be curious in this, and you're okay with a movie being more a lot of vibes for a big percentage of it. I think that's a very small group of people, so check it out if that's what you're into.
Yeah, in terms of religious satires from recently, I prefer, and granted, different time periods they're set, kind of accomplishing different things, but the movie Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul, which came out 2022, I think. I saw it in theaters just kind of on a whim. I think it's on Peacock now. I think that movie is not only funnier, but just kind of a more subtle satire on the whole thing. It's a very interesting movie. I'd recommend it. But yeah, ultimately, this movie just needed to be funnier. It doesn't need to be like a Walk Hard level parody or anything. Like, it doesn't need to be that, but they needed to spend some more time on the jokes and also just include more jokes, I think, because there were a couple moments where we laughed, but most of the ones they put in there were just kind of like eye rolls.
Oh, also, if you're going to this movie for James McAvoy or Benedict Cumberbatch, do not. They are hardly in this movie.
Yeah, which I considering how like low on the cast like list they were, I was like, they're probably only in it for a little bit.
Yeah.
But regardless, I'd probably give this movie like a 5.5. That's what I'll go with. 5.5 out of 10.
All right.
So
There you go. Let's go on to our spoiler discussion, which will be happening right after this.
all right, spoilers for the Book of Clarence. Jimmy, yeah, where should we start? At the beginning with the chariot race?
Yeah, I did not like that chariot race.
I didn't either.
It did not work for me. The one part that didn't, that I thought was funny, was the gypsies part where they like past and it was like whoosh, and it's like a gypsy. That felt like Tarantino Western kind of fun. Again, there are flares of style throughout this movie that I was completely with. I loved anytime they were inserting some flair, some pizzazz, spice the movie up. That was great. The gypsies were like Tusken Raiders, and I thought that was hilarious.
That was very funny.
It was literally like the pod racing scene in The Phantom Menace. I'm like, but this is chariots in Jerusalem. Also, this is not a thing that's going on in Jerusalem.
Sure.
But Jerusalem was gorgeous, by the way they portrayed it.
It's some like they filmed it on location somewhere in Italy, I guess, or something. Yeah. But yeah, very
it probably did not
place.
look that cool.
Yeah, probably not. But yeah, that apparently that scene, the way it's filmed, is like an homage to Ben-Hur. I've never seen Ben-Hur, so there's a very famous chariot race in it. But
not even the reboot with Morgan Freeman.
No, which I always forget exists.
I haven't seen either. I mean, I've seen parts of Ben-Hur. I feel like I've watched the chariot race at one point, the climactic one.
Yeah. But yeah, they have that. They get attacked by some kids. What does he get stolen from him? The kids, or do they just beat him up?
I can't. They just take his robe.
Oh, maybe that's just it. They take his robe. I will say, so the movie opens up with a dirty man, a dirty beggar man, and it wasn't until the second time he appeared that I was like, oh, that's Benedict Cumberbatch. Yeah. I was like, they disguised him so well.
Is that Benedict Cumberbatch? The first time, and then the second time, I was like, oh, it's definitely him.
Yeah. It took the second time for me too, but yeah, great. Benedict Cumberbatch in this movie is the funniest part, I think.
Especially when he's clean and everybody thinks he's Jesus.
Yeah,
he's
just like, he looks just like the white Jesus paintings, and he's on the cross at the end, and they're painting him and everything, doing the famous white Jesus painting. Very funny. Thought that was all good. But yeah, so he's in the
James
chariot race.
McAvoy also is kind of like, if you didn't know it was James McAvoy, he looks pretty different.
He does look different. Yeah, he far more recognizable than Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yes.
But yeah, he was also quite good, like James McAvoy in this movie as Pontius Pilate, I guess.
Yeah.
Do they ever say his name?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it's just assumed that's who he is.
Yeah.
Maybe Pontius Pilate hasn't entered the public domain yet.
The public domain. Yeah, but anyway, he's in trouble with his love interest's older brother. So that conflict kind of just like goes by the wayside by the end of the movie. I felt like that was one of the parts that wasn't very consistent throughout. Granted, I don't think it was the strongest to start with, because it was like it was vague as to why he had taken the money in the first place, why he'd taken the chariot, why he thought he could even win. It was very loose. There was like a weird scene at the beginning where he goes to talk to this guy for like no reason. He just goes to talk to him and is like, yeah, we don't have your money.
Well, he's going to tell him that he lost.
Oh, okay.
And they're like, but you said you gave me 30 days to get your money. So, and they're like, yep, and I'm going to kill you after that.
Yeah, that whole conflict was very weird. I liked the performance of that guy, but yeah.
And they're like leaving, and then they say, get out of here. And they're like, we are leaving.
Yeah. Okay.
Hilarious.
Yeah, there were so many just like random jokes like that felt out of place with the tone of this movie, but at the same time, I think could have worked if there were just like more of them or something. It like leaned more into the parody or satire of it. I don't know. Strange. Yeah, he's got a love interest. Cool. I don't know. Not much to say about her. He decides he wants to become the 13th disciple of Jesus.
Apostle.
Oh yeah, apostle.
Apostle.
Yeah, which they have a whole like
They say apostle.
Yeah.
Most people say apostle.
Yeah.
So.
Which they bring up. They also bring up, everyone calls him Clance.
Clance.
Which I was like, why are they saying it like that? And then later on, like, I think it's his love interest calls him Clarence. He's like, you're the only one who ever calls me that.
Yeah. Clance.
He has a twin brother, also
Yeah.
played by Lakeith Stanfield. Thomas, the apostle.
Yeah, which I think is interesting because Thomas is like biblically the one that's the most critical of everything that's happening. So
Interesting.
I was, because of that, like his nickname is Doubting Thomas.
Okay.
The big example is like Jesus is crucified and then he dies and he resurrects, and 40 days later he shows himself to the disciples, and Thomas is like, you're not actually Jesus, and he like shows him the holes in his hands. It's like the famous story. So because of that, I was thinking that Lakeith Stanfield, Clarence, was gonna take out like Thomas, or like somehow switch places with him, and just actually become like I can't be the 13th. I'm just gonna be one of the 12. I look like this other. That's where I was thinking this was going, and him just following along and being this guy. Like, I don't believe this stuff. Like, how's he doing it? You know, like checking, like, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that would have been a more interesting direction for this movie to go. Well, honestly, I thought that was where they were building. I'm not necessarily while watching it, I wasn't necessarily disappointed that it didn't happen. I was still just watching it for what it was. One thing I will say about this movie, I have no idea where it was going anytime, really.
Yeah.
I just thought that was curious that Thomas is his brother. He's the most critical kind of disciple. Yet they didn't really play into that. He seems very like steadfast and like, this is what we believe and this is what you're supposed to do as a disciple.
Yeah.
And no, there's no way we're going to let you in here.
Yeah. Now that you say that is bizarre that
Thomas
was like, I mean, granted, he is the disciple we got the most, or the apostle that we got the most time with, but he's like the most devout one almost in this. It was bizarre.
Yeah. I thought it was like Jesus' entrance at the beginning was pretty funny when they all like line up and he's coming in. They kind of conceal his face for a long time. I was surprised that they just outright revealed Jesus and he's just like a full blown character in the second half of the movie. I was like, okay, that felt totally inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I quite liked. I mean, I liked the guy who played Jesus. Thought he did a good job. What else? So I guess like I mentioned it in non-spoilers, but the whole like magical realism stuff, there's a lot of like weird things that happen in the first half of the movie. And then I think the movie should have done a better job of like, if it was going with this like questioning the beliefs kind of thing, should have done more of a thing to kind of connect that to like Jesus's miracles or something. Like, you know, he stops the stones in midair in this movie from hitting Mary Magdalene and all these other things, the walking on water. You could have, if you'd made more of a connection there, I think it would have been more interesting, but instead it's just like, oh no, this is just like actually happening and it's unrelated to anything that was happening, any of the weird things happening before. It's just, I don't know, felt weird.
Unless you're supposed to interpret it as like, well, they are all smoking weed the whole time, so maybe it is just, you know, like,
maybe.
It didn't really feel like that, though.
No.
It felt like, yeah, this is just happening. Take it at face value.
Yeah, that felt that way to me too.
Which makes sense from the story standpoint, but from like a overall like discussion standpoint, yeah, not as interesting. Because I mean, obviously, if there's a guy named Jesus walking around performing these things for real with no tricks involved, a lot easier to believe in Jesus. So it just makes like the whole like discussion around it less intriguing to have.
Yeah.
But I mean, if the movie takes place at the time, Clarence is alive at the time, so for him to come around, it's like seeing these miracles happen firsthand, starts believing him. But it's like, I don't. That's the part where it's like, okay, if you're like appealing to the skeptic, the skeptic is gonna believe if miracles start happening around them.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's not the problem. It's the problem is if you're trying to appeal to the skeptic, is how do you convince a skeptic without full blown proof? And because you can't have full blown proof because it's faith. But how can you appeal to a skeptic with with compelling arguments or discussion questions, things that are going to make the skeptic think and consider those sorts of things? And I think that this movie has some of that, but it's more just like have fun along the ride, and here's some quirky things that happen to these characters, and isn't this a good time?
Yeah,
Lots of vibes.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what else to say.
One thing I want to talk about is I like
Sure.
the gladiator storyline.
Yeah, that was good.
And I liked the fact that Lakeith Stanfield's character,
Clarence,
because he has two of them here.
Yeah.
He helps the gladiators by, instead of paying off his own debt, buys their freedom.
Yeah.
And him doing that despite not having like a religious obligation to do it, but just because it was the right thing to do. And I think him kind of like just believing at the end of it almost negates some of that a little bit. It's like
his turn, I was not completely convinced by. It felt like the movie was like kind of slowly building to it, but then it's like kind of a sudden shift when he just suddenly starts believing in everything. And
I mean, he does literally start walking on water. So I mean, you can't blame him.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just, I don't know. It was strange because I felt like the movie's message was appealing so much to just like doing good things, like maybe almost like, using the tenets of faith and everything to do good and everything. And you don't need to necessarily believe in miracles or like all of the more, outlandish things that you may hear about. But yeah, then he just, witnesses everything crazy happening and is a believer. And I don't know. Felt weird.
You also have the whole sequence with like the Last Supper. I thought that was like the idea of it again was fun. The actual execution of like here's Judas and all this.
I completely forgot about that scene. It's cool. It's like interesting. It's probably one of the more interesting things that happens in the third act. But I don't know.
I don't think you ever got Barnabas or whatever the gladiator's name was. I don't feel like you ever got the full satisfaction of him taking on the Roman Empire that they kept building on. They had so many opportunities to do it, and they just didn't pull the trigger on it.
And he has an Achilles heel, like literally.
Yeah,
I didn't really understand the purpose of that. I was like, when that was introduced, I'm like, okay, are they gonna like weave in like weird mythology things from like different religions just like for fun? I was like, that might be kind of cool, but it was just like just the Achilles heel for some reason.
The joke of it being the wrong heel, though, I thought was genuinely funny.
That was pretty funny.
Like wrong heel, whatever he says. Good twist, great twist. There's the scene where Clarence literally goes to Mary, the mother of Jesus.
Yeah.
And is like, so how does Jesus do all this? Like, what's he doing? How's he scamming all these people?
That scene I thought went on too long. I thought it was like, I liked the concept of it, like him going directly to Jesus's mother and just like, all right, how's he doing this? I'm like, okay, that's fun. But I felt like it just like, he kept doing the same joke the entire scene. And it was just like, okay, yeah, but no, really, what is it?
I think the same thing. I do think that scene works better for the movie because you have Clarence coming in and he's really like critical of this. Like he cannot be more critical, right? He's like, Jesus is a scammer. How is he scamming people? Let me know. You're in on the bit. And they just clearly, genuinely believe that he is the Messiah. And I think those dynamics work, right? Because you're not saying one is correct and one isn't correct. You're just presenting both of them at face value.
Yeah.
Where, and then the movie turns into, okay, well, obviously Jesus is doing these things, so now I believe. I do think there is some merit in, like, you have Benedict Cumberbatch playing, like, white Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Who's just, like, human beings were a mistake. They're all awful. Everything is bad. Fire and brimstone.
Yeah.
And then you have, like, Lakeith Clarence at this point, who's, like, a stand-in for Jesus, I guess, for whatever weird reason.
Yeah.
That part, that felt very awkward. And he's like, no, forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they're doing, which is like a Jesus literally says that apparently in one of the Gospels. So it was weird that, like, okay, you have actual Jesus, then you have Lakeith Stanfield Clarence Jesus now.
Messiah, yeah.
It didn't feel like the pieces quite clicked into place for a lot of these different things they were going for. And I would just like to listen to James Samuels explain, like, the thinking behind a lot of these things, because maybe it would make more sense. Because I think just taking the movie at face value and look at other reviews online too, it's like people aren't really sure what they were going for.
Yeah. And then Clarence just gets resurrected at the end.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I'm trying to think what else to say.
I mean, you have the whole sequence where he's scamming everybody.
Yes.
As the Messiah. That was fun.
Was fun.
Another great twist was when you think his buddy was Elijah or whatever his name is dead. Mm-hmm. Like, literally. Because it's like that point in the movie where something's supposed to go wrong.
Yeah.
And no, he's just fine.
It's
good. Like the nut tap with the beer bottle in.
That's right.
In Bodies.
Forgot about that movie. It's so good.
Very similar little twist that I thought was pretty good.
Yeah. No, I like the whole scene of him scamming people. I feel like, I don't know if it necessarily needed to take up a bigger chunk of the movie, but I just feel like that was like the most interesting stuff. Was him?
It was the most fast paced, at least. Like, things are going, flying. You got a lot of cool editing stuff going on. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of energy to it, momentum.
Yeah, and I think that's just like where logically like the most interesting conflict is him like pretending to be a messiah to get money, but then kind of learning the facets of like faith and religion through that and what it means to be like in a position of that power and everything. I think that's interesting, but yeah, it's just like too small of a chunk of the movie, and it's bizarre that it's just like for 20 to 30 minutes in just the middle of the movie. Mm-hmm. The movie took a long time to get there because that's like what I was waiting for. And then it, like the whole first third is just him wanting to be one of the disciples too. Like, interesting. I don't know.
They should have shortened up that first part.
Yeah, definitely.
Part 1, the 13th apostle, way too long. Mm-hmm. And then part 2 was the Messiah. Part 3, the crucifixion. It's just full blown Passion of the Christ.
Yeah,
this movie. It's like, okay,
it is. Yeah.
All right.
Pretty miserable and getting whipped constantly, carrying the cross through Jerusalem, and yeah.
Anything else to say about this? I feel like we've talked through kind of the elements that I wanted to get to. Just very uneven.
Oh, one of the other things I wanted to mention, and I meant to bring it up earlier, is so Clarence and his brother, their dynamic, they like every scene with them, they just repeat the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's just constantly like, you left our mother when she was sick and everything. Like that happens like 3 or 4 times at least. And it's just like the same conversation every time. And most of that is in the first act, which was once again, probably the worst part. But yeah, that's just something I noticed.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. I think that's probably it then.
All right. Let's go on to our final segment of the show, which of course is Holden. What are you doing?
What are you doing? What are you doing? No, what are you doing? What are you doing? No, what are you doing? What are you doing?
All right, Jimmy. This week, I didn't watch a ton.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Don't have to listen to you talk for 8 minutes.
I did watch, just kind of for fun, The Devil Wears Prada.
How was that? I've never seen it.
It was pretty good, actually. I was completely surprised by that because I mean, I didn't know much about it. I knew like Anne Hathaway, Meryl Streep are in it. It was like Emily Blunt's breakout role
really?
too.
I didn't know Emily Blunt was in it.
Yeah, and she plays someone named Emily too, which is funny. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty funny movie. I mean, it goes in the direction you would expect, but pretty well written, very good performances. Stanley Tucci's really good in it. Yeah, I don't know, just a fun movie, just kind of a fun random watch. I also watched the second Pirates of the Caribbean movie,
Dead Man's Chest.
Dead Man's Chest.
I need to see it. I don't think I've seen it since. I think it was on TV once in like 2009.
We watched it last night. My roommate, my two roommates and I. It was because Caleb, my one roommate, had not seen any of them. They watched Curse of the Black Pearl like a week or so ago.
Fantastic movie.
Yeah, so
holds
good.
up 100%, 120%. That movie's better than it was when it came out.
It's so good. And so they wanted to watch the second one last night. I was like, heck yes, I love the second one. And I watched it, and yeah, that movie that holds up really well. I think the second one is so good. I mean, it is really just like half a movie because it's part one and whatever before that.
The second one's good too, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I think you should watch the second one, and I think that movie got a bad rap when it came out.
Okay.
I think it's very and I think there's some revisionism going around right now where people are liking it more now. So I think that's good. I think it just didn't get its right time of day. Granted, it made over $1 billion, so people saw the movie. But the third one, from what I remember last time I rewatched them, that one is not as good, mostly because it's like 3 hours, and most of it is like not that exciting. Like the last 45 minutes is fantastic.
whirlpool?
It's so cool. But yeah, the rest of the movie is not nearly as exciting. Anyway, I also started Echo this week. I've seen the first 3 episodes. I like it so far. So if you watch it, I think we should review it.
Okay.
I think it's not like game changing. I think it being advertised so heavily with the mature rating is almost a detriment because it is not as R-rated as expecting.
Okay.
There certainly is violence in it and stuff that you probably couldn't put in a PG-13 or TV-14 rating rather. But it's not like they're swearing every second, or they're not like blowing people's brains out every other frame. Like a lot less than that. Okay. And I also finished Monarch because Monarch finished this week. Solid, just 6 out of 10 show.
Wow,
just fine.
I'm glad we did not watch
the last 2 episodes are the best episodes. I think it's the most interesting there. But yeah, it took a while to get to that point, I think. So it's all right. It's an all right show. That's what I'll say. Other than that, I haven't really been doing much different in terms of video games, just Metroid Prime. I did watch, and I'll rewatch it for when we review it, Jimmy. I watched The Holdovers this week.
Oh, wow.
Quite good. I'll talk about it more when we watch it, but yeah, we'll probably do it because it'll probably get nominated for Best Picture. So yeah, that's it for me, Jimmy. What about you?
All right. Well, this week I finished watching my Captains of the World Cup show, which was very good. If you like soccer, watching the 2022 World Cup on Netflix, that was good. And so then I finished listening to a podcast about the whole Uruguayan rugby team that crashed in the Andes Mountains and survived. So I was listening to that podcast, finished the podcast, so I started watching the Netflix movie, Society of the Snow. So I'm like 45 minutes into it.
Good so far?
Good so far, yes. Very good.
It's good.
Pretty accurate to what was in the podcast, which was very highly informative. So I'm excited to watch the rest of that. Gaming-wise, haven't really done anything other than just a little bit of... I'm a little bit of an addict, Holden, because I just relapse a little bit in short spurts of Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh my gosh.
And it's not even like... I'm not even replaying the story or anything. I'm just going into my end game save and just going and running around and killing people.
Sure.
And doing random things. Because I just love that game. It's just so good.
Well, maybe that Rise of the Ronin thing will be able to tide you over slightly.
Yes.
If it's any good.
Yes, hopefully. Fingers crossed it's good. Coming out March something, I think. But I did, Holden. I did watch the movie, finish the Chronicles of Narnia movie trilogy.
Oh, nice.
With Voyage of the Dawn Treader. And what a dud. Not a good movie.
Not good.
Entertaining from the fact that it's just clearly just a major step down from the first two movies. I think Prince Caspian gets a very bad rap. I think that movie holds up very well. It's more action heavy than The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The world building isn't as good, but I give a little world building to get more action. Whatever. Voyage of the Dawn Treader, different director, different team. Effects look terrible. They look bad.
Really?
It is. I mean, the first two movies hold up remarkably well in terms of CGI. This one does not. It looks bad.
The only thing I know about that movie is that as Will Poulter's character is apparently annoying.
Oh, he's the worst. Yeah. And these are the worst in the book too.
Okay.
It has moments that are like fun, but it is just like, wow, this is a step down in quality for sure. There is a scene at the end of the movie where Lucy, one of the main characters, goes to hug the mouse swordsman Reepicheep, very iconic character from Prince Caspian and Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and she goes to hug him, and her hands like in his fur it's right up to the camera. It looks so bad. Usually even bad CGI, I'm like, okay, I can do this. Just looks terrible. I mean, just it is so bad. I cannot believe. They couldn't have think of something else to do once they got that footage. And it's the most unsubtle of the Narnia movies in terms of Aslan is God. It is,
if you didn't get it before,
when you weren't quite sure, it's like Aslan is God. And I was curious, so I just looked up kind of the book rankings, and people love the book, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
Yeah,
it's
I had always heard that people really like that book, but
I thought I didn't like it because I thought Will Poulter's character in the book was just the worst as a kid, and I just quit reading it halfway through. I can see why. It is very fantastical. It is the most fantasy. It's just we're on a ship, we're going all these things, all these crazy things. It's kind of like a Greek epic, in that regard of just all sorts of things are going on.
Sure.
Worth watching if you watch the first two just to see how much of a step down it is. That's the one that you could remake, Greta Gerwig, definitely.
But start from that point.
Yeah. And it's the actors are good. It's just they had nothing to work with there.
Interesting.
Too bad there. Otherwise, that's it for me, Holden. What's going on next week for the show?
I forgot to check. I don't think there's any new releases coming out that we'd be interested in. So it might be a Oscar nom week.
Wow.
If we can
you don't want to do the ISS comes out next week?
Yeah, that's right.
I would watch that one.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity.
We could maybe do
I didn't
ISS.
realize that was coming out already. I think we do that because there's nothing coming out the week after that. So that we could do it. We do the holdovers that week. Or we could catch up on Beekeeper.
Which I keep forgetting is directed by the Suicide Squad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll come out with, we'll do something next week. Might be ISS. We'll see. We have a lot of Oscar movies we're going to have to get through at some point. But yeah, if you want to leave us a request, you can do so by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes or email us at tompodcast@gmail.com or donate to our Patreon. And I believe that's it, Jimmy.
All right, sweet. Until next time, adios, pantalones.
Love you.